The first bell of the morning echoed through Jefferson High, rolling down the halls like a warning. Students shuffled past lockers, laughter spilling over from weekend stories and whispered secrets. Amid the noise, one sound stood out, a faint hum, soft and steady, coming from a girl in a wheelchair. Her name was Emily Carter, a sophomore who'd lost her ability to walk after a car accident 2 years earlier. Her world had changed overnight. Once a track star, now she navigated ramps and narrow hallways instead of finish lines. Yet her spirit remained bright. She wore pastel hoodies with affirmations written on the sleeves, tiny reminders she wrote for herself. Keep rolling forward. Kindness wins. As she turned into the main corridor that Monday morning, she felt the familiar weight of stares. Some were sympathetic, some weren't, but she was used to that. What she wasn't used to, what still made her pulse quicken, was the trio waiting near her locker. They were the self-appointed rulers of the sophomore class. Brittany Shaw, with her perfect curls and sharper tongue, Kayla, her echo, and Liam, the one who laughed too loudly at things that weren't funny. Emily tried to ignore them, turning her chair toward her locker. She focused on the combination, breathing slowly, but Brittany's voice cut through the noise. Careful, Em. Don't run anyone over. You've got wheels, not brakes, laughter followed. The words weren't new, but they still stung. Emily didn't look up. Excuse me, she murmured, reaching for her English notebook. But as she turned, Liam nudged Kayla. Bet she can't make it over the threshold. Before she could react, someone's foot hooked under her wheelchair. It tipped sideways. The sound was quick and awful. A metallic crash, book scattering, the thud of her body hitting the cold floor. Gasps filled the hallway. Whoa, didn't mean it, Liam muttered, but Brittany's laughter cut him off. Emily's breath trembled as she looked up, face flushed with humiliation. The world blurred through the sting of tears. She tried to lift herself, but her arm ached where she'd hit the ground. Then, through the growing crowd, another voice broke in. Enough! The crowd shifted. A girl stepped forward, Amara Johnson. She was new, only 2 weeks into Jefferson High. Tall, confident, skin glowing like bronze under the fluorescent lights. She carried an aura that made people step aside. Brittany's smirk faltered. Mind your business. Amara knelt beside Emily, helping her sit up. When someone's on the floor because of you, it is my business. She looked at Emily. You okay? Emily nodded weakly, blinking away tears. Yeah, just embarrassed. Amara's expression softened. You have nothing to be embarrassed about. A teacher's voice echoed down the hall, and the bullies scattered before they could get caught. Amara stayed, gathering Emily's books and helping her back into her chair. Thank you, Emily whispered. Amara smiled gently. No one deserves to be treated like that. They wheeled together down the hall, silent for a moment. Emily wanted to ask why Amara had stepped in, but the answer seemed written on her face, an expression of quiet fire, like she'd seen things like this too many times before. The spark by lunchtime, the story had already spread. Whispers darted through the cafeteria like sparks. You see what happened this morning? Yeah, Amara went off on Brittany. She's lucky she didn't get detention. Emily sat at the far corner, pushing her tray aside. She felt exposed. Pity eyes were worse than cruel ones. But then Amara appeared again, tray in hand, smiling. Mind if I sit? Emily hesitated. People will talk. Let them, Amara said, setting down her tray. They talk anyway. For the first time in weeks, Emily laughed, a small, surprised sound. You're brave, Emily said. Amara shrugged. Not really. Just tired. Tired of what? Watching people get hurt while everyone else stays quiet. They talked through lunch, sharing pieces of themselves between bites of cafeteria pizza. Emily learned that Amara had transferred from Atlanta, that her mom was a nurse, and that she'd once been suspended for standing up to a teacher who mocked a classmate's accent. You fight for everyone? Emily asked. Amara smiled faintly. Only when I have to. Minutes later, after lunch, the hallways buzzed again. Brittany and her crew were waiting near the gym, their faces tight with anger. Word had gotten around that Amara had embarrassed them in front of half the school. Emily was wheeling toward the library when she saw them corner Amara. Well, look who thinks she's a hero. Brittany sneered. You should have kept your mouth shut. Amara's eyes were calm, but her stance was unyielding. You should have kept your foot off her chair. Or what? Liam challenged, stepping closer. Amara didn't flinch. Or you'll learn what standing up really looks like. Brittany laughed. You think you're tough? You're just some transfer trying to play savior. At that moment, Emily appeared at the edge of the hall. She'd followed quietly, not wanting to see another fight. But the look in Amara's eyes wasn't anger. It was conviction. Amara took a deep breath. I'm not fighting you with fists. I'm fighting you with truth. She turned to the students gathering around. You all saw what happened this morning. You watched a girl in a wheelchair get knocked to the ground, and most of you said nothing. Why? Because it's easier to be silent than brave? The hallway fell still. Amara's voice rose. Brittany laughed. Liam tripped her. Kayla filmed it, and the rest of you watched. Her gaze swept the crowd. If that's the kind of school this is, then I guess I'm in the wrong place. But if even one of you believes we're better than this, prove it. Stand with her. Stand with me. There was a heartbeat of silence. Then a small voice spoke. I saw it. It wasn't right. A freshman stepped forward, clutching her backpack. Then another, and another. Within moments, half the hallway stood on Amara's side. Brittany's smirk faltered. This is stupid. No, Amara said. This is strength. Principal Harris appeared at the end of the hall, summoned by the commotion. Within minutes, Brittany and her friends were taken to the office. But more importantly, something had shifted in the air, an invisible line of courage drawn through the student body. The change that afternoon, Amara walked Emily to the courtyard, where the autumn leaves drifted across the pavement like confetti. Thank you, Emily said softly. For everything, Amara shook her head. You don't owe me thanks. I do, Emily insisted. You didn't just help me, you changed something. People are actually talking about kindness now. They're apologizing, Amara smiled. Then maybe that's enough. But Emily could tell there was something deeper behind her calm eyes. Has something like that happened to you? She asked. Amara hesitated, then nodded. When I was younger, my brother got bullied. He had a stutter. I tried to help, but it didn't end well. He switched schools. I swore I'd never stay quiet again. Emily's heart ached. You kept that promise? Amara smiled faintly. Guess so. The bell rang, but neither girl moved right away. They just sat in the golden light, feeling the weight of what had happened, and the freedom that came from facing it. Weeks later, by the end of the semester, Jefferson High felt different. The principal organized a kindness campaign, led by Amara and Emily. They called it Stand Strong. Posters went up with messages written by students. No voice is too small. Courage is contagious. Kindness is power. Emily spoke at the assembly. Her hands trembled as she held the microphone, but when she saw Amara smiling in the front row, her fear faded. People think being strong means not needing help, she said. But real strength is asking for it, and giving it when someone else can't stand on their own. I used to wish I could run again. Now I realize I don't have to. I just have to keep moving forward and help others do the same. The auditorium erupted in applause. Later, as they left the stage, Amara squeezed Emily's hand. You're incredible, Emily smiled. You showed me how. The test, but not everyone was ready to change. A few weeks later, Emily found her wheelchair vandalized near the lockers, its tires slashed, stickers peeled off. For a moment she froze. The pain was sharper than before, not because of the act itself, but because she thought things had gotten better. When Amara found her, Emily was sitting on the floor beside it, silent. Who did this? Amara demanded. Emily shook her head. I don't know, and I don't care. Fighting back won't fix it. Amara crouched beside her. No, but standing together might. That evening they made a plan. By the next morning, dozens of students rolled through the hallway, on borrowed wheelchairs, scooters, even office chairs. Some wore signs taped to their backs that said, I roll with Emily. When the principal saw it, she smiled through tears. The students who'd done it came forward that afternoon, ashamed. They apologized publicly, and for the first time, it felt genuine. The letter a month later, Emily received a letter at home. It was from Brittany. I've been thinking a lot about that day, it read. You didn't deserve what we did. I was jealous of your strength, your courage. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm trying to change. Emily stared at the letter for a long time. then folded it carefully into her journal. When she showed Amara, she said quietly, "Maybe people really can change." Amara nodded. They just need someone brave enough to show them how. Graduation day. 2 years later, the auditorium was filled again, this time for graduation. Emily rolled across the stage in a navy cap and gown, her family cheering wildly from the stands. As she reached for her diploma, she looked out at the sea of faces. Students who'd once looked through her, now clapping for her. Amara stood among them. Beaming, after the ceremony, they met by the old courtyard, now decorated with a mural. 2 girls holding hands, one standing, one in a wheelchair. Above them, painted in bold letters, "Courage isn't loud. It's love that refuses to be silent." Emily smiled through tears. "You think people will remember?" Amara nodded. "They already do." Epilogue years later. Jefferson High would still tell the story of that day. The morning when bullies knocked over a girl in a wheelchair. And 30 minutes later, another girl stood up for her, changing everything. It became part of the school's legacy, a story teachers told to new students every fall. But for Emily and Amara, it wasn't about legacy. It was about love, the kind that defies fear, breaks silence, and ripples outward like sunlight through storm clouds. Because sometimes, one act of courage isn't just a moment. It's a movement. We don't all have to fight with our fists. Sometimes the strongest battles are fought with words, compassion, and the courage to say enough. Kindness doesn't make us weak, it makes us unstoppable. And when one person dares to stand, the whole world learns how to rise. Years passed, but the memory of that day at Jefferson High never truly faded. It lived quietly in the walls, in the posters that still hung in the counseling office, in the way new students whispered about the girl who fought back. By the time Emily was 23, she had grown into a woman who refused to let her wheelchair define her limits. She was studying psychology at a university 3 states away, working part-time at a community center for kids with disabilities. Every Friday, she hosted a group called Rise Up. There, children rolled into the room with hesitant smiles, some in chairs, some with braces, others carrying invisible scars. Emily would greet them all with her usual warmth. "Hey team," she'd say, "tell me one good thing that happened this week." Sometimes the answers were small. "I made a friend. I stood for 5 seconds today. I drew a picture of me flying." Other times, they were heartbreaking. "My teacher said I can't play because I'm too slow." Emily would nod gently and reply, "Then we'll show them what slow strength looks like." The room would light up with laughter, courage, and hope, the same way Amara had lit up her world once upon a time. A familiar face one cold December afternoon. The center's doors swung open and Emily froze. Standing in the doorway was Brittany Shaw, older, her once perfect hair tucked under a knit cap, her eyes filled with something unfamiliar. Humility. "Emily," she said softly. "I wasn't sure you'd remember me." Emily blinked. "How could I forget?" Brittany stepped closer. "I came to say thank you. I'm studying social work now. I tell your story, our story, whenever I talk about change. That day, it changed me. I've spent years trying to make up for it." Emily stared at her, unsure what to feel. Old memories flickered, laughter, humiliation, pain. But then she remembered the letter. The apology, the courage it took to write it. A smile slowly spread across her face. "You don't need to make up for it, Brittany. You already did the hardest part. You changed." Brittany's eyes glistened. "I only did it because you forgave me when I didn't deserve it." Emily shook her head. "That's what kindness does. It breaks the cycle." They hugged for the first time. In that moment, the past loosened its grip. The reunion months later. Jefferson High invited Emily to return as a guest speaker for its annual Stand Strong assembly. She agreed, on one condition, that Amara join her. When Amara received the message, she nearly dropped her phone. It had been years since they'd seen each other. Life had taken her on a whirlwind path: college, advocacy work, and recently launching a foundation called Voices Unshaken, which funded anti-bullying and equality programs across the U.S. When the day came, the gymnasium was packed. Students filled the bleachers, the same energy buzzing that had once turned cruel. but now felt hopeful. Emily rolled onto the stage, microphone in hand. Amara stood beside her, smiling like no time had passed. "Years ago," Emily began, "something happened in this school that could have broken me. Instead, it built me. Not because it didn't hurt, but because someone refused to stay silent." She turned to Amara. "This woman taught me that courage isn't loud or flashy. It's quiet. It's stubborn. It's love refusing to back down." The students erupted in applause. Amara stepped forward, her voice firm and steady. "I was 16 when I learned that one act of cruelty can echo for years. But I also learned that one act of kindness can echo louder and last longer. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be brave enough to care." For a moment, there was silence, then thunderous applause, whistles, and cheers. Among the crowd, Emily spotted a girl sitting in the front row, her leg in a brace, tears streaming down her cheeks. Their eyes met, and Emily knew the cycle had continued, but this time, the right direction. A ripple becomes a wave after the assembly. Dozens of students approached them, some to thank them, others to confess, "I bullied someone once. I want to apologize. My brother's in a wheelchair. I used to be embarrassed. Not anymore. I want to start a kindness club here." Amara smiled at each of them. "Start small," she told them. "One person at a time." The school's principal, older now and grayer, approached with a proud smile. "You two started something that's still growing. We renamed our annual community award after you." Emily's eyes widened. "You didn't?" "We did," the principal said warmly. "The Johnson Carter Courage Award, for students who stand up for what's right, even when it's hard." Tears welled up in both girls' eyes. The crowd clapped again. For a moment the world felt weightless, like time itself had paused to honor the power of compassion. Full circle. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily and Amara walked, or rather, rolled and walked, down the same courtyard path they had years ago. The mural they once stood under was brighter now, freshly painted. Emily looked up at it and smiled. "We were just kids," she whispered. Amara nodded. "Yeah, but kids who refused to stay quiet." The wind carried the scent of lilacs through the air. Students passed them, some stopping to smile, others waving shyly. A little boy ran by, pretending to race Emily's chair. She laughed, pretending to speed up. Amara watched, her heart swelling. "You ever think about how far we've come?" "Every day," Emily said softly. "But what amazes me most isn't where we ended up. It's how one small moment changed everything." The documentary year later, a filmmaker heard their story and reached out to create a short documentary, titled 30 Minutes Later. It premiered at a small film festival in Macomb, Chicago. As the lights dimmed and the first scenes flickered, across the screen, Emily on the floor, Amara standing up for her, the students uniting. The theater fell silent. By the end, people were crying, strangers holding hands. When the credits rolled, the audience rose to their feet. The applause wasn't just for Emily or Amara. It was for every person who'd ever been knocked down, and every soul who dared to help them rise again. Afterward, an elderly woman approached them. "My granddaughter was bullied," she said through tears. "She watched your story online. It changed her life." Emily reached for her hand. "Then it was all worth it." The letter from Liam one evening. Emily received an email from a familiar name, Liam Torres. She hesitated before opening it. "Hey, Emily," it began. "I know it's been years. I saw the documentary. I cried. I was that kid who tripped your chair. I've carried the shame ever since. I've been trying to make up for it. I'm a special ed teacher now. Every time I see a kid struggle, I remember your face that day. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know that what you and Amara did, it saved more than just me." Emily sat there, tears streaming silently. She replied simply, "Liam, people stumble, but it's what we do after the fall that defines us. You're doing exactly what you were meant to do, help others stand." When she hit send, she felt something inside her finally heal. Final scene years later, Emily and Amara stood together at a university auditorium, watching as a new generation of students presented projects on inclusion, empathy, and courage. Their foundation, Stand Strong Global, had chapters in over 50 schools, As the final student spoke, Emily whispered, "We started all this because of 30 minutes." Amara smiled. 30 minutes that changed the world. The audience clapped, but the two friends barely heard it. They were lost in the glow of something deeper. The knowledge that kindness once planted doesn't die. It grows, it spreads, it saves. When they left the stage, Emily turned to Amara and said quietly, "You know, people still call you the girl who fought back." Amara chuckled. "Good, but I hope they remember why I fought." Emily smiled, eyes shining. "Because love is the strongest weapon." They stepped into the golden light side by side, one walking, one rolling, but both unstoppable. And somewhere deep in the heart of Jefferson High, their story continued to whisper through the halls. Be kind, be brave. Be the one who fights back, not with anger, but with love. Moral sometimes. The fight against cruelty isn't loud or violent. It's quiet, steadfast, and filled with grace. It's standing beside someone who can't stand on their own. It's using your voice when others stay silent. It's believing that no matter how dark the world seems, one act of courage can still bring the light back in, because the smallest stand can start the biggest change. Kindness over cruelty. Always 30 minutes. Later. Stand strong. The power of one.